Hi, it's Sam Dyer here. I'm your host for today. We'll be talking about the benefits of cold exposure, and I'll be joined by Emma Estrella Corey and Dr. Giri. This is originally a call that was through my Facebook group, Love, Light and Laughter. That's why the details are on screen, because I'd love you to join the group. Anyway, the video will be starting very shortly, so please stay tuned. I'm going to hand over to Emma. So we've got Emma Estrella Corey and also Dr. Giri as well. So I'll let them introduce themselves to you. And yeah, over to you, Emma.
Great. Well, thank you for inviting me on this. I think it's awesome, beneficial podcast, really topical at the moment, as A, it's been really cold outside, and B, cold water swimming, ice bathing, everything like that is really on the mainstream. So for sure, it's really good to chat and open it up to everyone who's just starting or through their journey, and just seeing how we can help, or how I can help with my background in the Wim Hof method. So 5 years ago, I took myself out of my comfort zone a little bit, and what I found at the end of that is a lot of freedom. So, which I can explain more over time. But yeah, so I'm a Wim Hof method instructor. I make cold my daily thing, daily ritual. Although I make a cold exposure my daily thing, so not necessarily the ice shower. So yeah, so that's probably me in a nutshell, and so I got distracted there by the sound. But so yeah, so if I can help you guys take on your journey or embrace it, then that's perfect.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, your turn now.
Hi, my name's Giri. I'm a GP. I work as a locum. I have a lot of interest in holistic practices. So I've gone through a lot of different things that I've done: mindfulness, acupuncture, traditional herbal medicine, Amazonian plant medicine, etc. And I have a few health problems myself, so I was basically a patient. And because of my involvement with other holistic practices, I came across this, and it's helped me greatly. I was very intrigued by it, and I always wanted to try it. And it's really helped a lot with the inflammation that I have, and I'm pretty much amazed by it. And as Emma said, cold has now become my warm friend. So that's where I am now, and I'm happy to answer any questions or share my experience. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Just a quick intro for those of you that are perhaps less familiar with me. My name's Sam Dyer. So I've got into this through my wife Cara, who's in here, brought me the Wim Hof method book for my birthday back in October, and that started off my journey of cold showers, and it's really gone from there. I found it absolutely amazing. I do breath work anyway, so been familiar with that for a while, but to do the Wim Hof method, so you've got the breathing, you've got the cold exposure, so that can be cold water, cold showers of any description, or just going out in the cold, and then also the commitment or the mindset as well as being the third part of it. So bought a wheelie bin, as some of you may have seen. Got a wheelie bin in the garden, beautiful blue, and filled that up with water. Been in it at 3.1 degrees, one-ish, a little bit under, just about. And also then, I think today it was about nine-ish, something like that. Spent 12 minutes in it quite happily, so I've got different ideas on that, and I'm going to ask Cara at some point to share a little bit as well, because she's not massively into cold, as she'll tell you, and yet has been enjoying this and getting a lot out of it. So I think that trying to get across today a lot about some experiences, but I think it's often the same kind of questions that people come up with. What makes me smile with it is that it seems so very straightforward at first. Oh yeah, you put the shower down to cold. Simple as that. And actually, taking a cold shower. It is as simple as that. And yet once you start getting into it, you start asking all these questions about, oh, well, what about, should I put my head under? What about the temperature? What's the optimum time? What's the optimum temperature? How often should I do it? And all these things come about. And then, of course, there's understanding what the benefits are as well. So for those that have just joined, just as a recap on that, we've got Emma Estrella-Corrie and Dr. Giri here. We're talking about cold showers, cold exposure, and anything Wim Hof as well. The call is being recorded so that we can show this to people that are unable to make it at a later date. So if you wish to have your video off, feel free to do so, but you are very welcome to put your video on as well. If you would like to ask any questions, if I could just ask you to perhaps, if you wouldn't mind, drop me a note in the chat and say you've got a question, or if you're clever enough with the tech, you can actually use a little thing to put your hand up and give a little wave. So let me know on that. Emma and Giri, both of you, can we just hand back over and just would like to know really what you consider to be the main benefits? Because I did have someone ask me in the Facebook group, and it was a fair question. He'd said, what's the point? And I know what he meant. It's like, well, okay, great. Well, why are you doing this? So what? You've got into a wheelie bin with freezing cold water. So what? So what are the benefits of it, and what is the point of doing this kind of thing?
Good question. I born in Brazil, lived in Brazil for five years before I came over to the UK. I was always saying I designed in a hot country. I hate the cold. I don't want the cold. I was always, and I heard of the Iceman some 5 years before I met him, Wim Hof. I asked that question too. So I think it's like, why would you want to do that to yourself? Why would you want to? I'm perfectly comfortable the way I am. So I think that's a very valid question, and it's a really good place to start. So I think initially my relationship with the cold was fearful of the fact that I was going to be uncomfortable and I didn't enjoy the sensation on my skin. So, and also from a mental aspect of it, in that stage in my life when I first discovered the Wim Hof method, I was very much questioning my beliefs that had been imprinted on me. So I was going through a major shift, a major change in my life, and I was screaming out for another way, not obviously physically, because I probably would be in a different place right now, but just in my head, I'd be like, oh, there's got to be another way to how I'm feeling right now. So I think the main pull for me to try this was the fact that I needed to change, and I was so desperate and drastic in my approach that it was just suitable going, yeah, okay, let's do that. So it was more of an emotional change for why I did it, for me to go in. And then all the benefits came from it once I went in. So my skin started to improve, hair became a lot shinier. Do you know what I mean? All these things, I felt amazing. It was a mood changer. So you feel the physical benefits first, how I went into that. Then I learned a bit more about the chemical side of it. You know, like it's great for, you have two types of fat. You have white fat, brown fat. And I heard that it was very adaptive to the brown fat, that it transfers straight to heat energy. And we all are born with this, but we lose it as we get older and wear clothes. We're too conditioned in our central heating, and in our car is set temperature, and in the office it can't go below a certain degree or something like that. So I became aware of stretching my body's adaptive mechanisms, if you like, and waking up the dormant systems in me, and I see it as more of a happy stressor. So there's an array of different ways, and I could go on for more, like there's way more benefits than that, but they were like the initial ones for me that I sort of felt instantly, if you like. So yes, I don't know if you want to step in there, because I don't want to take inflammation away from Giri.
You can take it away.
So it's good for the endocrine system, which is like the blood flush out system, if you like. So you create more white blood cells, so it's good for the immune system. It's just, there's, when you say what's the point, why would you do that? You don't go in consciously thinking of all those things, but as you explore more into it, as you say, there's more to it than just turning the dial. It's a very, very good unity of mind, body and soul, because it's also good for anxiety and depression, because it teaches you to breathe deeply, more powerfully, and just wake up more awareness within by having a correct breath. So you can cope with so much more than the shallow, stressful breath that we generally do on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, so there's lots of layers to that question, for sure.
Definitely.
Why do I do it? I don't know if I should just share a bit of my own journey into the Wim Hof method. Essentially, I spent about 3 years on and off in the jungles of Amazon in Peru, studying indigenous plant medicine, and what happened, partly as a consequence and partly my own doing, because it was so intense, that I lost a lot of weight in these retreats that I did, and I lost a lot of muscle bulk. And I also have gout, the condition gout. So my legs suffered quite a bit, and you know, my tendons and ligaments.
How'd you find Robin Kimmerer?
Were not.
How'd you find Robin Kimmerer?
Just going to stop. Can I go to
I found the mute button.
So yeah, as I was saying, so I had a lot of inflammation in my legs, and I came back with like 2 crutches. You know, being a medical person, I kind of was juggling between the medical, you know, the traditional allopathic medicines, and also my interest in holistic medicine, and to explore more holistic methods of healing. And I'd actually, by chance, as we say, by chance, met a very beginner level instructor in the jungle who happened to mention this, and he looked like a glowing example of health. And I thought, what the hell? And so I was very impressed, and I put it in my mind to look it up. And then when I came back, I looked it up. I saw Wim's website. I took the app. I did all the right things, you know. I went into the app. I got one of the courses, you know, the online fundamentals course through Wim Hof course. And he talked about the cold shower. So he gently eased me and taught the breathing. I did that every day. And as I was doing that, I was starting to notice the improvement. And then obviously COVID happened. So this was right in the beginning of last year. And as that was happening, I was getting frustrated because I wanted to progress and do the, you know, the cold immersions, but I wasn't able to because all the instructors had pretty much said, you know, shut down. So I got on YouTube. I found some maverick giving some advice. I'm being honest. So the right way to do it is to go to a proper instructor, take the proper instructions and do it. So I was sitting in a warm bath of like between 12 and 13 degrees thinking I'm doing cold immersions. But to be honest, even that helped because I was sitting for about 20, 25 minutes in that. And that steadily got my inflammation down enough for me to kind of think, hang on a minute, this is actually making an impact. And around that time, the lockdown got eased, and then Emma had one workshop in the Lake District. And then I came and did that workshop, which kind of flipped everything, and it was kind of like a light bulb moment, partly because of everything, the whole ambience of, you know, everybody there. It sets the mental framework of doing it the correct way. You've got the correct guidance, and you're doing it all at once. So it's kind of like a group camaraderie thing as well, which kind of pushes you to do it. And when I noticed the physical benefits coming from that, there was no looking back really. And the main physical benefits were the effect on inflammation, the effect on skin, the effect on my sleep, the effect on my eating habits, other practices like I do yoga and meditation as well. And it was easier to slip into those practices, ease myself back into those practices which I'd kind of lost touch with. So those were the benefits that I could gather straight away. And then I did a lot of research, and there's loads more benefits. So those were my initial ones that I encountered.
That was fantastic, and it's amazing really to hear. And it's I mean, it's little things that make me smile as well. Of like warm bath of 12 and 13 degrees. Of that wouldn't have seemed warm at one time, but you know, getting in the wheelie bin at 9 degrees today, it was just a bit like, well, you know, I went to a sea pool yesterday at Bude, and that was about 9 degrees. And then you think, yeah, it could have done with it being a bit colder. It's strange how things change like that. I've got John Boyce here that he's got a question, and I think it's a really important one and a very good one. So John, can I just ask you to unmute yourself and pose the question?
Hi there. Hi. I wonder if I could ask you a question, especially as you're a doctor. I had a heart attack in May last year. I've recovered and I'm back running again, and you know, I was pretty fit before I had it. But it involved having an angiogram and having a stent fitted, and I feel great. My question is it recommended that you could still do this even if you've had a heart attack? Because I've had the benefits of it in the past, like post sauna plunges in places like Finland and stuff like that. You know, but that was quite a while ago, when I was probably about 20 years younger, because I'm 65 now. So that was my question.
I'll let Emma answer formally, but my experience of it is that this whole process, and my understanding and my reading into it, is that it's a vascular system workout.
Okay.
So it's an essentially a very extensive vascular system workout, because you know your skin is the largest organ of the body, and what it does is the vascularity. So the blood vessels are given an extensive workout. So yes, temporarily it does put a little strain on the heart. So my advice would be that yes, you can do it, but I would start very gradually in terms of doing the breathing and conditioning your body first, and then taking baby steps first. So cold showers gently in the beginning of the shower and then end of the shower, and that primes your body to experience the cold not so much in a negative way, and always listen to the body. If it becomes too extreme, you step back and get back to comfort. That's what I would say.
Okay,
a graduated response, a graduated increase would basically build your cardiovascular resilience. Sorry.
Right.
It conditions and it works your vascular system. It gives it a workout that nothing else can.
Okay.
Can give you that. But you need to gradually and condition.
Yeah, I mean, I've recently started running again, and I used to be a bit of a wimp and wear quite a lot of clothing to go running, whereas my wife and my daughter just run in the singlets, you know. And so I've started running with just the vest on and relying on my body to warm up, you know, which of course it always does, but it's absolutely freezing when you first go out there.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a similar sort of thing. Yeah.
I'll let Emma add anything else that she would interrupt.
Just that in the army we used to run and we're told to wear a t-shirt, and the answer was go bold.
No, I was in the RAF, so I know exactly what you mean.
But with my instructor hat on, anyone with heart problems, I ask them to get clearance or speak to medical doctors first before they come to my workshops, and they are more than welcome to come to my workshops. So. And the reason why I say that is because anyone could die of a heart attack or cold water shock, blah, blah, blah.
Of course, of course.
You've just got the heads up knowing that you're aware of the heart and it has caused problems in your past. So you're more likely not to have it because you are more aware of your body and how you are working with that. By someone who's a bit of a gun-ho, I can go to cold water. More concerned about. So for that reason, anyone like that is just as welcome. But exactly, I'm not going to stress what Giri says. With a Wim Hof method, I say that anyone can do it in the sense that, regardless of the heart condition problems, because you enter the water consciously. Yeah, so you go in slowly, you go in fully aware, you connect with the breath, and because when you connect the breath, you're not in your flight, fight, freeze. Your response is your rest and digest. So your response is your parasympathetic rather than your sympathetic. And for that reason, that's where the strength comes. That's where the inner power comes. And as Giri says, you're absolutely right. It's the best cardiovascular workout that you can ever do. Better than any gym, and I argue with any PT. It's not saying I'm taking away from the gym factor, but just sitting there doing nothing in cold water and knowing that vasoconstriction, vasodilation is going on in your body is really, really powerful. And it's and the idea is just to relax more and more, and you'll force the veins and arteries to really work out. And that's how fantastic is that for heart problems or anything like that. So really, really topical.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that answer. That now confirms that Sam isn't a complete nut job after all.
Well, I'm not sure that the two are that closely related, but yeah, thanks, John. So just to open that up a little bit to both of you, because John obviously asking a very specific question about heart attacks there, but if we just generalize that out, are there any groups or any, if I can say type of person or condition or something like that shouldn't do this? And what about ages, for example? Should my mum surprised me the other day telling me she's just recently hit 70. She won't mind me saying, well, not too much anyway. And she said, oh, I did a cold shower at the end of that one. Is that okay? Can anyone do it, or are there certain groups that should be not?
Again, with my instructor hat on, we generally would say people suffer from epilepsy, perhaps not with the breathing side of it, and maybe with the cold. But I was out there on social media that I've taken a guy who has epilepsy and NEED, which is non-epileptic attack, brought on from his time in Afghanistan. So, and that is a really taboo or controversial subject. And he does the Wim Hof method, and he's done it. And he's responded positively with it. So generally we would say epileptics generally would need clearance or to perhaps do one-on-one and just see. But saying that, I think it's an individual basis, and so I don't want to brand this side, these people with a label no, whilst these people with a label yes. So I feel it's on an individual basis, the relationship you have with the breath work of the space and the security and the ease that you start off in. It all starts making you feel comfortable where you are, and therefore you can do that successfully. We also say pregnant women is a no-no, but again, there's always an anomaly is that, in the sense that if you were doing the cold exposure before you're pregnant, then your body knows about the flight, fight, freeze, and rest and digest, the parasympathetic. So you're not likely going to shock the baby and cause harm. With the breath work, the innate wisdom the body holds, the intelligence in the body, you won't be able to do your retention times for very long. So retention is like breath holding, because the umbilical cord isn't going to starve the baby from oxygen. So you'll have super short retention times. And how wonderful is that? So even though we say no to pregnant ladies, they probably won't want to do it anyway. And if you do it, they do it shorter time because the body is going, no, so I would say pregnant ladies can do it as well, but again, that's on an individual basis on where they are, how comfortable they are, whether they've done it before and things like that, because the body will just say no to, rather than the head going, fill this form, oh, you're pregnant, no, you can't do it, in that sense. So that's wonderful as well. And again, as I say, the heart conditions and stuff would be one that we would be concerned whether you need to get clearance from the doctor or anything like that.
What about ages then? Do you think is there an upper and a lower age limit, you would say?
Yeah, again, I spoke with other instructors who have children, and actually the child or the children know their bodies more than the adults or more than the parents think. They're probably more in tune with how they tick more than the parents, because when I was growing up, my mum was, oh, you've got to wear a hat, got to wear gloves, and I'm like, but I'm not cold. So I kind of knew but I put it on for you, no problem. So the children, I feel if you have a positive relationship with the cold, then the children will also mimic that as well. And if they are not comfortable, they'll just get out. And there's no timings involved. There's no, Wim's son held an ice cube and he goes, holding it around, and everyone's like, oh, that's great, it's an ice cube. They don't go, oh my God, it's an ice cube, take it off the child. It wasn't anything like that. It was just because once it gets really cold, he'll just drop it down and then carry on picking up something else. You know what I mean? So it's I wouldn't put any force on it, and I wouldn't put any timing. I would just build a positive relationship with cold as opposed to anything else. So for my experience, there is no age limit at all.
And going up the other way then, so those that are a bit older, again, no problem with doing it, just build up slowly. Is that the aim of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Gradual cold exposure. And ironically, actually, there was a study came out, I don't know if you read it, it was how the cold can improve Alzheimer's. They were studying prevention for Alzheimer's. So, and they were going to make that protein into a pill to give it to 70-year-olds. But actually, I'd argue at 50, start going into cold and prevent the cause, something like that. So for that reason, I think instead of giving a pill for it, just start changing your lifestyle now, and that will help. So
really important.
So I don't know if you want to.
I thought something came to my mind when you were asking the question about the age ranges. We've got a very close friend, and we would hang out as a family. And that friend and me, we do cold exposure to a big extent. And just to kind of stress the point of, it's our relationship to the cold that the children would mimic. So we would just literally let his daughter be as she is. She's, I think, about 4 or 5, and we were going into the pools, in the lake when we were up. When we were in the Lake District for a holiday back then, and then we were just coming out, and then we were doing the warm-up exercises like how we learned in the course, and then literally after watching us all, the child simply naturally took off her shoes and put her feet down, and she said, "Daddy, can I come in?" And she didn't go in all the way. She went in as much as she was comfortable. She said, "That's really cold." And then she hung on for a couple of few more seconds, and then she was actually fine. And then she started picking a stone or two. And before long, she had actually stayed there for more than 2 minutes. Now, a lot of adults would have actually screamed their head off doing that. But she managed that. And then she got out when she was uncomfortable. And then she just carried on her merry way.
Yeah.
And it goes to show how much of our imprinting and our relationship with extreme conditions, which was a normal part of our living life before, and we've conditioned ourselves completely out of it. And that relationship we've consistently passed on generation over generation, and it's so much more with all the central heating and all the modern houses, which is very good. And believe me, I value warmth, don't get me wrong, but we've taken away our adaptability and our resilience to extreme conditions, which is very important for health, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's brilliant. I know Andrew's got a question, so I'm just going to ask Andrew if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and just posing the question you've got.
Yeah, hi guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I haven't read a thing other than through some of Sam's stuff and the occasional Men's Health magazine article, very occasionally, I should say. And my current approach has been to basically endure as much or as long a cold shower as I can. And basically, I've built up to 2 minutes, great, but my approach has very much been sort of, I think you used the phrase gung-ho. So I've been sort of like very much the sort of, I hate to say it, but I can't think of the correct term, the blokey sort of, come on, the getting aggressive with cold water sort of approach. And sort of, yeah, anyway. So
no, I love it. It's good. You need to release some sound sometimes, so it's get it out.
Yeah, you might not say that if you're a family member when I'm having a shower at 6 o'clock in the morning. But my question, and getting to the point, was at the moment I'm sort of just controlling my breathing as best I can. So that initial shock that you get, or that I get, and then remembering to breathe and not hold my breath, and then I'm trying to sort of just breathe out for or in for or whatever. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is I'm not adopting any formal sort of method. How much or how significant is the breathing or the formal sort of Wim Hof sort of approach? How important is that breathing? What sort of difference does it make?
Yeah. Again, a very good question. Basically, there was cold water swimming, people swimming the channel way before the Wim Hof method was invented or came to light. So you can naturally go into the cold water without doing the breathing firsthand or before. per se. So, and the reason why you can is because actually going into the cold water, you change your brain's chemistry, your biochemistry, because you are the way to stay in the water after you've gone through the grit and determination and the gung-ho and the releasing out some energy there, is that to stay in, you have to connect with the breath, breathe deeply and surrender to what is. So actually you respond in a very, as I say, rest and digest, or the feminine energy, or you know, whatever you want to say. But what's happening in the brain is that because you're breathing deeply and you are you're sort of opening up more blood vessels, the ones that don't normally get opened up. So you breathe more into your mammalian and a reptilian brain, which obviously you stress less about the stock exchange when you just turn the shower to cold. You don't really care so much about your shopping list or the stock exchange, and you're really present on, and you're really focused on being present on the now and in that moment. So it's less doing, more being, and I know there's a very big kind of debate about that. So by changing that state of mind, you're feeling all the benefits from the cold. So doesn't mean that with the breath work, doing it beforehand, the breath work kind of balances out your body, your pH, so you become more neutral. So you're less acidic from a stressful Western lifestyle, and you become more sort of neutral after the breath. So that means you have less pain receptors. So obviously when you're stressed, you probably feel the pain more, you get agitated more, you have that shortness. So after the breath and then go into a cold shower, you're a bit more relaxed, you're a bit more sort of open, you sort of embrace, and also you feel the less pain receptors there on your skin. So your body's perfectly primed to go into the cold. So it'll just be a mind, it'll be a head thing. So that's why the breath, the Wim Hof method, is linked, because you have the less pain receptors. However, if you don't do the breath without going in, then just go in the water. You don't need to go, oh my God, I can't go in because I haven't done the breath work. Just go in, because you change your own chemistry anyway by going in the water.
Thanks. Sorry, while I'm on air, can I ask you a very quick question? This might be something for later, but you guys that are using that have got the sort of ice baths outside, whether it's a bath, a paddling pool or a wheelie bin, how do you stop it turning into what would resemble a pond? So are you changing the water every so often? Do you have to keep topping it up with ice? Are you putting some sort of sterilizing tablet in there? I just wondered what the approach is, so you're not sort of having to fill a wheelie bin every day.
Well, I can tell you that fairly quickly. So this is week 4 with the same water in it, and I'm just playing around to see what it does, and it definitely needs changing. I mean, it's not awful or anything, but I can tell. And the thing is, I mean, we've got a pool that we put up in the summer, nothing massive, but what it has got me really used to is understanding what water looks like and understanding when it's getting in need of treatment and so on. With the pool in summer, I use chlorine, I use pH stabilizer, and you have to really, really keep on top of it. Part of that is because the weather is hotter as well, and it's uncovered. With the wheelie bin, I think all I'm going to do is in future is probably just put a little bit of chlorine in there just to help it along, and probably change it every couple of weeks, something like that, because I don't think it's going to need more than that. It's got a lid as well, of course, so that helps keep stuff out of it, because a lot of what makes water dirty is what goes into it: rainwater, leaves, bits of mud, small animals, whatever else. So that's the thing to watch out for.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
I'm conscious that we're getting through time at a really rapid rate, and there's a couple of things I wanted to bring. We've had someone that's asked about Raynaud's. So is this something that helps with it, or what do you feel on that?
Yeah, so speaking from personal experience, a couple of participants that have come to my workshop, I don't know much about Raynaud's. Apparently there's 2 types, that I'm not so sure, but the types, the people that come to my workshop, the key is the breath work, actually. So the breath work will open up your veins and arteries, give more energy or more ATP or more oxygenated cells all over, rather than just shallow breathing on a day basis and starving your body with oxygen and only providing oxygen to the major organs to keep you alive. So the Wim Hof method is an abundance that every cell is oxygenated. So that generally opens up the the arteries in the fingers or in the hands and stuff like that. So that will help filtrate the blood, or if you like, or open it up a bit more. And then when you go and expose it to cold water, gradual cold water, you know, so maybe just build it up. You won't have this woman didn't have pink, she didn't have white hands, she had pink hands. We went into nature and she had pink hands, and she gave me a hug. Actually, she was all wet, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, awkward, you know, just this was pre-COVID, because she started to cry because her hands are pink, and I've never known anyone so happy to have pink cold hands. Do you know what I mean? So normal for me, but for her, she's always had white, so she's like, oh my god, it's amazing, and she hasn't had any problems since then. But she religiously keeps on the breath work, and she does the cold water, and she jumps into cold water now. Another guy was a cyclist. I don't know why I do that with my hands, but a cyclist. So he suffered with his hands in the cold, even though he wore gloves. And he prescribes drugs every day, so he works in the pharmacy, and he tried everything the conventional way, did the Wim Hof method, and he admits now that when he doesn't do the breathing, he gets the cold, he can feel it on the hands, but when he does do the breathing component of the cold, he doesn't have white hands, which is really interesting. I don't know then whether those two people have one type of Raynaud can be ease the symptoms with breathing and cold water, and they didn't have the other type of Raynaud's. That I don't know. I don't know whether you can.
I don't know what else to add, but I can only stress the importance of the breathing and the whole process. Really, yes, you can learn it from a book. Yes, you can do it by yourself by piecing all the information together. But it's so much easier and better to get guidance and to do it with, you know, proper instruction, either through the app or through any instructions. This is my experience, really. I'm not plugging in Emma.
Maybe you can plug Emma. We can do that. That's fine. You know, I mean, I think it's probably. Yeah, you will plug me. But no, I think it is important, because, like I say, you think, oh, it's so simple at first. So, you know, here's some kind of questions that I would put into the mix. So these are things that I see asked a lot in terms of, I've had it sometimes people in this group answer. I've seen it on the Wim Hof groups as well. So gloves and boots would be one thing. Is it better to wear gloves and boots when you get in the water? Should you put your head under? That's common questions. And so firstly, what would you say in terms of, do you need to have gloves or boots on? Is that necessary? Does it matter?
I love this question. I also get this a lot in my workshop. So yeah, the Wim Hof method is consciously entering the cold water, and that is with your hands and your feet exposed. They have their own little orbit of veins and arteries and capillaries, and it's super sensitive and super delicate. So yes, absolutely, go in and expose your hands and your feet, because actually when you listen to the hands and feet, they're the first indicators, because their extremities are the furthest away from the heart, and they are there to give you a warning sign whether you've outstayed your welcome. And it's nice to listen to that and go, okay, I feel good, my hands are starting to be cold, it's time to get out. So you leave happy, healthy, strong. So absolutely, the Wim Hof method for me and how I share it is to expose the hands and the feet. You can take that away and do it gradually, so you don't have to do the whole thing and keep your hands and feet in there all the time. And you can take your hands out of the water and stuff like that. But they are the key, I think. If you're doing cold water swimming, completely different. If you want to stay in there longer and perfect your strokes and do the ice mile, then yes, there's a lot of cold water swimmers that cover their hands and feet. But actually the Wim Hof method is a couple of minutes checking in with yourself. You kind of, there's no room for the neocortex to kick in. So you're just fully just connecting in, and that includes the hands and feet. I always advise make a relationship with the cold water. So yes, if you're feeling comfortable, then put your head into the water as well. And again, that's a mindful thing that, yes, I feel ready to do that. There is a thing of ice cream heads, and people turn the shower on, it hits their head first and that, but I would argue, were you doing that consciously? You know, it's a slow thing and everything like that. So
when you first start off, I mean, certainly for me, what I did was went in so that water was hitting my chest rather than, because I think the first couple of times I did it on my head and it was just going right in the same place, like da, 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 and that's not particularly comfortable, but you can alter yourself. So what about temperature and duration? I mean, Emma, you and I had a conversation the other day where I said to you about, well, what's cold, in this sense. And I have to say from my own experience, what's gone for me is the fear of getting in to water that is going to be what I would have perceived previously as too cold or problematically cold. I have now got into water and spent time, and it was my first time. I spent a minute. I could have spent longer, definitely. I know I could have, but I thought, well, I'll just do it and kind of build up. So I just think if I can get in at 1 degree, then there's probably not anything I can't get into. That fear has gone completely. So it actually brings a different relationship with the water now. But is there such a thing as an optimum temperature? Is there such a thing as optimum amount of time? I was always taught from, I don't know where I got it from actually, that you allow 1 degree per minute is a safe time. But what I think that probably is for those that are not used to doing cold water exposure. So let's start off with what's cold for a start. What is cold? Okay.
So cold, actually, according to the Red Brown study, the Wim Hof study, 18 degrees and below. So that's cold. That's
hot. 18 degrees.
But as you say, the more you adapt your mechanisms, your body's mechanism, that doesn't feel so cold anymore. So I always be on the safe side for that. 12 degree and below is a happy cold. But what we say in the Wim Hof world, in the sense that an intense cold exposure is 4 degrees and below. So that's the intense. You don't need to have it every day per se. Anything below 18 or 12 is considered cold. And to stay in those temperatures, an intense cold is just between 2 and 3 minutes is enough. It's enough to change the body's chemistry, wake up the cells, leave feeling good, leave feeling positive, the mood enhancer, the happy hormones are circling around and you feel good. If you're doing it on a regular basis, all you need is a couple of minutes a day and that is it. And, bite size a day is happy, healthy, strong. If you do the intense 4 degree for longer, your body will cope, your body can do a lot more than you think. And that's fine, and it's good to reset. So I'm happy to be in 4 degree water, like Wim, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or whatever. But you don't need to do that every day, because you will stress the kidneys, the adrenals, and that's not the point of the method. The method is all about a healthy promotion and stuff like that. So initially, I think for people to have their parameters, or to try and figure things out from not a label point of view, but from a boundary. Oh my God, what do I need to do to achieve? We then, as you say, if you go up a degree, maybe that's an extra 30 seconds or something like that, whatever works for you. But I'm so far beyond that now that I just go in. If I feel good, that's great. And I just come out feeling, I know when it's enough for me to come out, because there's a little voice between like the ego and the actual, you pushed the boundaries, now it's time to get out before anything. So I'm still working out which voice, because the ego is like, get out, like within 30 seconds. But then there's another deeper voice going, oh, I think it's good. Now it's time to get out. So
that's really interesting, because for me, it's almost like the other way round. I've had times where that I've, for example, with the showers, I started off by 30 seconds, increased it by 30 seconds every week, and just kept going up and then chucked it up for a bit. And I thought, I could stay in for longer, but that would have been ego to have said like, oh yeah, I managed whatever 14 minutes in, whereas I think the reality was that I would not have got anything more from it. So I've actually dropped down with showers now. I do 5 minutes because I feel like that's a good amount for me. And so I think there is definitely that inner conversation that can go on at times as well, of like, why am I staying in, or why am I getting out, is probably a good question either way, isn't it, of whether it's your ego that's talking to you or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first started it, I was questioning everything in my life, like everything. So it was also about what's the achievement? Like, why do I need to do 30 seconds, then the next day 1 minute, then the next week 1.5 minutes, and build up gradually? Because you're still not listening to your body, you know, in that sense. I know you need guidance when you first start, which is probably where as you say, the relationship with the instructor comes in, because scrap all that, everyone's different, especially us women. We have moon cycles every month, so it's not linear. You know, you can't, I don't believe you can go up in a gradual perfect curve. Do you know what I mean? So every day is different. You might have not slept so well the next day. You might be slightly more dehydrated. Foods that you eat, your diet, you know, all these things are factors of whether you can maintain that cold. And what I don't want, and I really stress in my workshops, so because you set a bar or an expectation going, well, next week is 1.5 minutes, and next week comes and you can only do 1 minute, then suddenly you beat yourself up because you haven't done 1.5 minutes. And that's completely the opposite to the Wim Hof method. It is like, you should be celebrating you were in for that minute, rather than beating yourself up that you didn't do those 30 seconds. But
absolutely,
us, I don't know whether it's the British or maybe the humans, but we always beat ourselves up for the bit that you didn't do. Like, what about celebrating that you did 1 minute? That's amazing. Less than 10% of the population are choosing to do this, so that should be celebrated. But a lot of participants give up or feel demoralized because they focus on that 30 seconds, which they put in their head in the first place. No one else is bothered about your 30 seconds. They're more proud that you did the minute, you know. So you put yourself in a negative place, and that's not the idea of the Wim Hof method. Is to break out of those boundaries and break out of the conditioned mind. But I get why you need that to start off and have that achievement goal, but don't live by it. No,
I think that's a really important point, and I know for me it was definitely one of those things that I found it useful. It probably stopped me pushing it too quick in the beginning, because I probably would have gone too far and then it may have put me off. So I think that kind of worked as well. I just want to bring Cara on, my wife, just to give a little bit of explanation around her findings with it, because, you know, as I say, she was the one that bought me the book in the first place, and then she got into it as well. So and this is someone who will tell you about her feelings with the cold, especially with her hands and feet. So I'm just going to get you unmuted, if you wouldn't mind just sharing what your experience of it is, Cara.
Well, I mean, I bought the book because Sam was going rogue, and I don't like not doing things properly. So if you're going to do a method, read the book and do it properly, was my motivation. And then I read the book and thought, oh, actually, there's quite a lot of relevance here. I do like science-backed things. I have Raynaud's in my hands and really struggle with a cold, despite being brought up in the northeast coast of Scotland and dipping in the North Sea over the summers. Still don't like it, really struggle with being cold. I also have celiac disease, which when reading the book, I started sort of hearing about this sort of treatment for inflammation, treatment for autoimmune, and that it can assist with that. And I thought, that's got to be worth a bit of discomfort every day. And so for the past couple of months now, I've been getting in the shower. There was been an element of healthy competition between Sam and I at the beginning as to who could stay in the longest, but we've kind of gone past that. And the idea of me climbing into a blue wheelie bin in my garden in the middle of winter with 10 kilos of ice in it, or whatever it was, I just would never have imagined it possible. But I feel great, you know, and I sat there this morning with the sun beating down. It was not warm, but I felt really good and really kind of calm. So yeah, I'm definitely sold on it. and building up gradually has been important, I think. Yeah, that's basically that.
Yeah, how are the hands? And
they're getting better, and I'm noticing a lot less symptoms from the celiacs, actually. I'm kind of going rogue and not really sticking to a gluten-free diet particularly closely. And there just isn't, I wouldn't turn around and say there's absolutely nothing, but it's significantly less. I mean, the only way to really test it would be to go and have a blood test or whatever. But yeah, I know, I feel really good, really, really good.
Excellent. And maybe it's nice to come in here with the Wim Hof you said about the science, which initially some people come into the method because of the science, then some people like me just came in because it was like needed to change, and I felt the change, and then later on I learned about the science as an instructor. So it's interesting to talk about placebo effect and the healing of that. So and it's really powerful, the mind connection that you can have, because if you're sold on it, or it's a positive impact on the mind, and you've got the mood enhancer then arguably that's really good for depression and anxiety side of it, because it is positive from the placebo. And it can take you over to being a believer, from a non-believer to a believer is the placebo. But the science also, which is what I love about Wim Hof, is there. And the science, although is a small collection of numbers of participants, it's enough to raise enough doubt for more investigation. And isn't that the beauty of it? Enough to make enough doubt to go into more about it. And that to me is fantastic, because initially there is no pill or subscription for that. It is breathing and it is cold water, which are arguably free. So there's a lot of kind of quashing of that. And it's really nice to see that the momentum is rolling to find out a bit more from the science.
I thought you were always going to suggest that there's some sort of thing with big pharma trying to make lots of money out of drugs, but no. Okay, fair enough.
I thought I put it diplomatically.
If I can just quickly add, I by chance happened to have a blood test as soon as I came back from the jungle, because I instinctively felt I was deficient in vitamin D and B12, and lo and behold, it was that. I was deficient, but also my chronic inflammatory marker was raised significantly for my age group. And I knew the cause. It was my joints and the tendons and ligaments. So I had chronic tendinopathy as well. And then 6 months on, after doing the Wim Hof, I did another blood test just to check, because I'd replaced the vitamin D, etc. So it was a checkup, a follow-up. And the chronic inflammatory marker had come right back down to like low normals completely. Well in the normal range. Low normal, in fact. So, all these things started to make me think, and so it was an experience first, and then I started to look at the theory behind it, and then what's going on, why is it having an impact on the mental health sciences? And very quickly, I don't want to take too much time. The way I look at it is breathing is one thing that you can control consciously and unconsciously. So it's a process that is like a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious parts of ourselves. And when you really engage with that, you really make a kind of a link, however thin it is initially, with a part that is traditionally thought of as not under our control, which is the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system has sympathetic, which increases the heart rate, the fight and flight mode, etc., and parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, reduction of blood pressure, reduction of the heart rate, and all of these matters. Now, the breathing directly impacts that, but in a cumulative, gradual way, and then the cold enhances that further. Now, all of these I was understanding, and then, funnily enough, just my old medical school brain kicked in, and I thought the skin's obviously having an impact. And in the Wim world, we only look at it from the view of vascularity, in the sense there's loads of blood vessels, so the skin is involved. It's the largest organ. But what I'd completely forgotten, because it's not necessary really, we don't need to remember it, it's only there in the medical school exams, the skin and the brain come from the same tissue in the embryo. So a developing baby, the brain and the skin come from neuroectoderm. So you can even look at it that way and say the breathing helps you experience the cold helps the blood vessels, and the cold also helps the skin, which is directly actually connected to your brain because they come from the same tissue. And that helps with all kinds of, the old reptilian brain, takes away the thinking process, your hormones are regularized. So there is a link. I can see a kind of a connection, but if you ask me what exactly that process, which is lighting up, I won't know. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I can see the way connections, and I can only piece it together because I know it's working. And my medical mind is trying to piece together information as to why is it working, what's happening. That's my bit. Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. I'm really conscious of time. I mean, I could sit and talk about this all day long, as I'm sure you guys could as well. But I'm conscious of people's time and want to keep it within the hour that we said. Just to round up, any final points from either of you, or perhaps what's the, just to recap as well, Emma, the best way of getting started with this as well?
Well, so many different approaches. You can check out the Wim Hof method on YouTube and follow Wim's guidedness with the cold and the breathing, or the website, or get the book, contact an instructor. I give lots of advice like I am on here, Sam, and just, it is I believe it is for everyone. And if you're curious, yeah, go ahead. And if you're not curious, I think it's not for you, still do it anyway, and then you've done it, tick the box, and never have to do it again. So my advice is just to don't overthink it and just do it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Lovely. Well, thank you very much, both of you. Gary, anything final from you?
No, not really. All I would say is, yes, it's something uncomfortable. It's definitely beneficial in terms of experientially, and I'm really learning a lot still, and I'm learning every day. And if you're going to do it right is the only way I would say it. Otherwise, you're going to have a negative experience on something that can be so beneficial and positive. That's all I would say. I
think that's a really good point. And Emma's being very gracious at saying contact a Wim Hof instructor. Emma is, by the way, the highest level Wim Hof instructor in the UK. She's also in the Facebook group, so you can get hold of her through that. And so I would encourage you, if you're going to speak to an instructor, make it her because she's there in the group.
I hate plugging myself.
Dr. Geary is in the group as well. I mean, he probably doesn't want an inbox full of medical questions, and yet, I'm sure he's happy to have discussions with people. But thank you both of you very much for giving your time today. As I said, I mean, we could have easily gone on a lot longer, but I think it's always important to keep to time when you do these things. So again, thanks very much. I will post the video guys. Once we put a bit of post-production to it and put it through. That will be in the video, will be in the group. And if you have any questions that you want to ask, you can always tag it onto that thread, and then I'm sure one of us can come in and answer it. So again, thank you to all of you for joining us today. See you soon, guys. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye. Bye.